Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are honored to have our attorney friend, Isaiah Cooper, here joining us live today on the show. It's Cooper Law, and he's the founder and principal of Cooper Law. And we're excited to talk to him today about all the work that he does and, the people out there who can really benefit from his services. So how are you today, Isaiah?
I am doing great.
Well,
Moving forward.
great to have you here. I know you're local. You're from New Haven, Connecticut. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do as an attorney.
Well, I live in New Haven, Connecticut. I've now lived here longer than I've lived anywhere else, and I've lived a number of different places over the course of my life. And I'm a business attorney. I help people buy and sell companies, buy and sell assets, engage C-level executives, negotiate with other parties for strategic deals together. I have structured companies and I've helped people sell their companies, and I try and help them do so in a profitable way.
Great. Well, would you mind giving us a little bit of your background, your history as an attorney, and fill us in on, what made you even decide to become an attorney? And then we'll get to specifics about the exact work that you're doing and the types of things our listeners can benefit from.
Well, I was a professional trombonist.
Wow, my
Before
son just started the trombone this year. He's in fourth grade.
I,
Ah,
and
awesome.
Is that the Philadelphia skyline behind you? No,
That's the
the
New York
Brooklyn
City
Bridge.
skyline.
That's New York
Yes,
City,
very
right?
good.
That
Uh-huh.
view I haven't seen. Well, I could give your son a lesson. I still do a lot of playing, but I was principal trombonist in the Jerusalem Symphony in
Oh,
1985,
wow.
86. The year before that, I was studying with a trombone soloist in Germany on a grant from the German Academic Exchange Service. And this sort of explains moving from trombone to law. Um, I got a letter from my mother that was single-spaced, 2 pages, perfect diction, perfect spelling. That was while I was in Germany. And the beginning of my year in Jerusalem, playing in the Jerusalem Symphony, I got a letter from my mother. That was 2 paragraphs, and just about every word was misspelled, and whatever ideas were in there were jumbled up. And she had multi-infarct dementia. She was having little tiny strokes. Each one was taking out a little part of her cognitive function. And so she was going downhill. Well, she lost her sense of smell when she was 60 years old. And the year I was in Germany, she was 67 or 68. The year I was in Jerusalem, she was 68 or 69. And even though the Jerusalem Symphony offered me another contract, I decided it was time to be closer and I'm the youngest of four
Okay.
siblings, and I thought I should be in the location and able to help out with that. So I didn't accept that contract, but then I came back to the States and got a job as a paralegal at a law firm on Wall Street and
Wow.
did that for 2 years before I went to law school at NYU. Um, I graduated from law school in 91 and got a job with a firm that doesn't exist anymore, but we represented we represented Carl Icahn with respect to investment transaction he was doing in all sorts of early stage companies and other high net worth individuals who are investing in various concerns. And my first job in New York, I was a tax attorney. Don't consider myself a tax attorney today, although I have greater understanding of tax than your average transactional attorney.
Okay.
So I worked with that firm for 3 years and then took a job with what was then a small boutique firm in New Haven.
Wow.
It was called Bergman, Horowitz, and Reynolds.
Okay.
And after I was there for 2 years, from 94 to 96. And after I left, they merged with a big international firm. Um, but there's still Bergman and that firm's name, which right now
That's okay. I keep thinking
I'm not,
Bergdorf
I'm not,
Goodman, and I know it's not a clothing store, so it's okay.
right, right, right. So I after that I worked for a firm in Hartford for a little more than 5 years and really did a lot of transactional work representing entrepreneurs, representing banks and lenders, representing venture capital firms and making investments into firms, and learned a lot about the sorts of transactions that make businesses go, that allow businesses to be successful. And so I was at that firm, and then I took a job at a firm in Wilton, Connecticut, which is near Westport, Connecticut,
Okay.
just a little inland of Westport, and did
Mm-hmm.
that for 2 years. And, I remember I was going to Chamber of Commerce meetings in Wilton, and the only thing people talked about there was property, property taxes, and schools. And I didn't own property in Wilton or have kids in the schools there. And I talked to a mentor, and my mentor said, "You should be working where you live." So I moved my practice to the greater New Haven area and formed Cooper Law LLC in 2004.
Wow.
So
Well,
I've been working in my own firm now for 21 years, I guess. Uh, and and it's great to be my own boss, although I I have to bring in all of the clients, and but I knew I could do it. I knew there were clients who were willing to move with me when I moved from Wilton to New Haven. So
well, thank you for
that's a
sharing.
little background.
We love hearing the background. That's how we get to know you. And now
And
as
I
an
still
attorney,
play the trombone quite a bit. I play
that is awesome.
in the Civic Orchestra of New Haven. I
Oh,
play
wow.
in a klezmer band, and I play in a big band.
Wow.
No, today's Wednesday. On Monday, I rehearsed with the big band. So
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. We gotta hear it sometime. My son's just starting, so all I hear when he practices is brr, brr, brr. I don't know what it sounds like. It
it
doesn't
takes a
sound.
while to learn how to control the trombone and how to make a decent sound.
I'm sure. I'm waiting. I'll let you know when that happens. Um, well,
Don't
thank
hold your
you.
breath.
I know it'll take some time, but right with everything. So let's get into specifics, if you don't mind, about some of the things that you're doing over at the office, and why people should reach out to you and work with you.
Well, there are many, many, many entrepreneurs who are in their 60s and 70s and probably need to sell their companies before they retire, if at all possible. And that's a complex transaction. And those people, they may have a business attorney like me who is working for them, but they may only know the attorney that helped them buy their house. And, uh, I have bought a house, but I'm not an expert at that. And mainly, most of that work is done by paralegals in any event. And running a business and operating a business company is something I do know something about and can help them with. And so, this whole enormous group of entrepreneurs who own small businesses of various sorts in all sorts of industries but who want to retire. I mean, if they're not public companies, I mean, if you have a public company, the company goes on as long as you have good management. And then, if you have a public company, the most important thing is to hire great C-level executives who can make sure that everything gets done properly all the way down the line. But if it's a small company and it's not public, then you've got to make sure that it's being run correctly so that it will be profitable. And sometimes entrepreneurs who start out in a business because they know that business, they end up wearing too many hats, and they're doing too many of the jobs inside the company, and that makes the company almost not saleable. They need to figure out what
Mm-hmm.
they are doing in all the different areas as a finance officer, as an accounting or bookkeeping officer for their company, or making sure the bookkeepers are recording things correctly. If it's a excuse me, if it's a manufacturing company, they have to make sure that they're keeping the equipment up to date and that the people running the equipment and doing the manufacturing know what they're doing. If it's a product sales company or a chain of stores, they need to make sure each store is being managed correctly. And if they are wearing too many hats, um, they can't sell it to another entrepreneur because another entrepreneur doesn't want to wear all those hats. They want to buy the company, pay cash for the assets, and run it and have good employees that they can rely on to make sure things get done properly. So,
Beautiful.
if you're running a company and you're wearing too many hats, you need to figure out how to find the right employees to manage each different part of your company so that your company can operate without you being chief uh, dishwasher and bottle opener and bottle cleaner, So, the problem, and sometimes entrepreneurs are proud of the fact that they can do all these different things, but it doesn't help them sell their business.
Got it. And just curious, what types of businesses in general are we working with here? Any type of business, or is it, could you just elaborate on the type of help that you're offering?
Well, I've worked with businesses of all sorts. I mean, most recently I helped one client who's a financial planner, managing people's funds in various accounts. I helped her sell her business. And I have another client who's trying to sell his business, a similar business. Well, those are the two most recent ones, but I've represented God, I did a transaction where I helped a company operating a smaller airport transfer um, its services into another company so that the ownership or the operation of that small airport could be handled by another company. That's just one example. So um, I've represented many different types of companies of different types, and a lot of the issues are common amongst them. There are, some specialty issues, some companies are dependent on their intellectual property in order to know that they have um, that the whatever they're making is theirs securely and that they can sell it without any challenge to their trademarks or to their patents. And so, if in a company where the intellectual property is very central to the business, you have to make sure that's all registered with the Patent and Trademark Office or for other types of intellectual property registered in other ways and secured so that the rights to that intellectual property can be sold to a buyer so that
Mm-hmm.
the buyer can operate the company going forward without any challenges to it. So
Awesome. Wow. And you have a lot of experience. You must love what you do. Can I share what is the best aspect of doing what you do? What do you say to people when they ask?
I love what I do. I love knowing it. It's interesting. I did a a webinar recently where I talked about preparing a company for sale or for financing, you know, and the truth is I have enough experience at this point in my life that just about any transaction that comes my way, I can identify the key issues for the seller or the buyer, depending on who I'm representing, and make sure that they are aware of the important things that need to be taken care of. And in terms of documenting them, I know what needs to be done and how that needs to be supported in documents before a business can be sold. Or if the business, that webinar I just did was about getting financing. Well, I've represented banks and I've represented other lenders, and I know what they're looking for and how a business has to prepare in order to get financing. So,
Got it. Well, thank you for that. And do you want to share any of your, gosh, we only have 4 minutes left. I know we got a late start. Let me just ask, what else did you want to talk about here for this show? I always like hearing client experiences of people you've worked with, but obviously this is, us getting to know you. So I'll ask you what you would like to share for the rest of the show.
what would I like to share? I mean, it is important to me to help people get a transaction documented appropriately, get the details right. I mean, you know, I've formed companies for people, and I know people can use LegalZoom to form companies or other electronic services that are out there.
Yep.
And if you use a service to do something like that, they give you a slew of documents.
Uh-huh.
Maybe one of them is they maybe they file a document to form the company, but they give you a slew of other documents and they don't tell you what to do with them. What I do
Mm-hmm.
when I form a company is I form the company, I
And
structure it, and if it's an LLC, I draft the operating agreement and I make sure they know how that operates and what they need to do to keep it running and to make decisions and record decisions. So I try to give them a set of documents that is structured for their company with the names of their principals and officers on it so that they can operate it appropriately.
awesome. Wow. Well, you clearly love doing what you do. And how does it work as an attorney? With the fees, and if someone does reach out for an initial consultation, is there a charge for that?
I don't charge for initial consultation because until I've talked to a potential client for a while, I don't know what they need or what they're looking for. But then I can learn that and I can give them an estimate. If they're trying to sell their company, I can give them an estimate for what it might cost for me to do that, or tell them what rate I would charge them per hour and what documents I think need to be prepared in order to do that. You know, y- y- I I try to get retainer funds from clients so that I have in the bank essentially what probably am expecting to get from the transaction, but you never know when there's going to be a complication, when the other party that they're dealing with is resisting being reasonable with respect to some disclosure documents or providing information that my client needs to know they're going to be safe and protected with respect to this. So I can't give them an absolute number, but I can give them estimates and tell them what rate I'll bill them at, and they have to know that I'll keep working. If they provide retainer funds, I'll keep working till I've used up the retainer funds and ask them for more if necessary and explain why. I've tried to be as transparent as I can with them in this process so that they have some level of expectation
Yeah.
of what the whole transaction is going to cost. Of course, the interesting thing is that clients who are running companies usually have a much higher expectation of what their company is worth and what they'll receive when they sell it than a buyer might have for that.
Yeah.
And generally, the buyer is going to be in control in some ways. I've
Okay.
sometimes talked about the golden rule. The golden rule means that the person who has the gold and is putting the money on the table is going to have much more say over structure and how things done.
Yeah.
Clients might want to sell the stock or the equity interests in the company, but it's safer for a buyer. They don't know what's happened in that company. If they buy the stock or other equity interests, the LLC interests, if it's an LLC, they don't know whether there are liabilities that come with that.
Yeah.
They would rather buy the assets of the company and run it as it's been run,
Got it.
acquiring the assets and not having any hidden obligations in the stock of the company. They don't want this. Buyers want assets. They don't want stock. That's
Got it.
a
Yeah.
general rule, and buyers usually get their way with that.
All right. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. Please remind us all the ways we can reach out to you, please.
Best way to reach me is by email at icooper@cooperlaw.net, or via phone at 203-233-4547.
Beautiful. Well, pleasure getting to know you. I know your website is down right now, but hopefully that'll be up shortly as well, just for another way they can reach out to you. Any social media pages you want to share or phone number before we go?
Well, just the phone number,
Two,
203
three.
233
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Pleasure having you here and looking forward to the next time we get to connect. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Bye bye. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.